Well, good morning. This morning we looked at Philemon. This is an interesting book. It's a very personal letter. It's a letter to Philemon, who was a rich Christian who had owned slaves, and it was about a runaway slave called Onesimus. And Paul writes to Philemon about this runaway slave and says, receive him back. Don't punish him for running away, but just be grateful you've got him back. And now, of course, he's a Christian, so you need to treat him as a brother. He's a brother. Many people criticize modern preaching and not so modern preaching when it strays into the area of social teaching. So some would say, for example, that Christians should never have preached against the slave trade because slavery is not condemned in the Bible. Here, Paul sends a runaway slave back to his master to serve him. Surely Paul here is approving of slavery. But read this letter more carefully. It's true. The Christians in Paul's day did not have the voice that we have today. Today, if we speak, government takes us seriously. Bishops sit in the House of Lords. And even a normal Christian in a democracy, our vote is important, so our MPs will respond to us. In these times, Christians had no voice. And so Paul didn't waste his time railing against the evils of the empire on this issue of slavery. Instead, he concentrated on how Christians behave towards each other. And this book absolutely undermines the idea of slavery. It undermined it in Roman times, but even more so undermined the transatlantic slave trade. Because here's what he said. When you receive Onesimus back, no longer as a slave, but better than a slave, as a dear brother. If you receive someone as a dear brother, you can't beat them, you can't victimize them, you can't take away their entire agency. You have to treat them as someone who you love and you care for. And Paul went on to say, if he owed you anything when he ran away, then charge that to me. Here is the challenge. Treat the slave as though you were treating an apostle of Christ. Completely undermine the system. Christians were never again going to be effective slave owners because they loved their slaves. They treated them like brothers. They were concerned about the best for them, not just receiving from them and milking them for everything they could get out of their slaves. So people are right. The New Testament doesn't rail against slavery. They had no voice to do that. I mean, there's plenty that talks about the evils of this world and the evil systems of this world. But no, you're right, it didn't pick on slavery as a single issue. However, Paul completely undermined the system. But in our day too, the system of racism is completely undermined by this book of Philemon. We treat each other like brothers. Whatever class status, whatever ethnic status, whatever background people come from, we are brothers and sisters and we treat each other accordingly. It undermines the class system, it undermines racial prejudice, it undermines slavery. The Lord bless you today.